Clicker training is a form of positive reinforcement. So whether you want your animal to walk on a lead, or walk at liberty, or be calm at the vets, or go into more challenging situations, clicker training is a fantastic way to help them understand those behaviours. It's a tool that enables clear communication to your dog of what you're looking for by using a reinforcer that increases the chance of behaviour happening again. Positive reinforcement focuses on triggering the seeking system. So the seeking system is the thing that gets us up in the morning, gets us going to work or motivated to go to the toilet or go and get breakfast. It's the thing that gives us the get up and go. And so by triggering the seeking system, getting the animals to think carefully about what they want to do and move forward from a thinking perspective rather than a reacting perspective, that's what gives positive reinforcement the strength and makes it a really beautiful way of working with all species. There is a simple way of setting up a session. So this is the ABC, the antecedents, the behaviour and the consequence. So antecedents is just a posh way of saying set the animal up for success. So make the right thing really easy for them to understand. They then do it, and then there's a consequence for that. So you reinforce, you reward the thing that they did. ABC. Positive reinforcement training has been around for a very long time, and it's well known that it creates such positive experiences for the animal, both emotionally and physically. It's actually legally the only training method you can use with wild animal collections such as zoos and safari parks. So here we have a lovely example of a keeper using a hand cue, finger cue, to ask the gorilla to open his mouth so that she can check his teeth and make sure he's okay. Nice and easy, there's no need for restraint, there's no need for sedation. It works beautifully. When carefully taught, when the timing is good, clicker training can be used on any animal. Here we've got giraffe taught to target a stick with their noses. They stay with their nose on the stick while someone else can then trim their toenails and make sure their feet are healthy. Again, no restraint, no sedation needed. And one closer to home, my little Shetland pony Pixie has been taught to stand on a mat and wait there and pick up her feet while I trim them. You can't see because my bottom's in the way, but she has no head collar, no rope, and she's not tied up. Here's just a lovely little graphic of other things that animals have been taught to do, wild animals have been taught to do using positive reinforcement. And I think some of them are particularly lovely. I love that the ravens were taught to be spies, and how lions acting in movies. Now obviously there's ethical, ethological issues with that, but the actual training was positive rather than punishments or negative reinforcement. Have a little look through some of these. Which is your favourite one? You want to comment below which one you like, or if there's others that you've heard of that you'd like to mention. The beauty of positive reinforcement is, as we see, can be done with any animal at all. You do need to be aware though of the animal that you're working with. So what are their ethological, their blueprint needs, their physical needs, their emotional needs, their social needs? Because if those needs aren't met, they're not going to learn as well as you'd hope. And the other thing that you need to be aware of is their communication signals. So we'll just have a little look at these here. Now, next 3 slides, I've kept the references from where these lovely graphics have come from. So if you want to get more information, please do visit those sites. There's obviously a lot more than what's on each of these graphics, but these are the key ones I thought were most helpful. So this is the facial expressions of stress in a dog. You've got the looking away, the whale owl, the clown mouth, a little look through those. The other one that you might add in there as well as an anxiety is a little tongue flick over the nose. So there are more, again, but these are your kind of key ones. This lovely graphic shows the expressions of stress due to fear or frustration in horses. And we see quite a lot of frustration if our timing or reinforcers aren't accurate or shaping isn't accurate with animals. Horses in particular, because they're grazers, they eat pretty much all the time, 18 hours a day. For them to feel satisfied that they have met their food needs, switch that dopamine off, if we give them one small bit of carrot as a treat, that's not going to work for them, and you're going to get high frustration behaviours. So you want to feed big handfuls of the lowest value food possible. So big handfuls of soaked chaff or hay, the lowest thing they'll work for, and give them plenty of chewing time in between, especially if you're seeing these signals. Lots of chewing helps them to relax and be less frustrated and less stressed. With the dog, you're kind of looking at the opposite. So the little tiny treats, if you're using food as a reinforcer, rather than the big handfuls, otherwise they'll be full and won't want to do anything else. Now I've just included this graphic as an added extra. It's something that isn't widely recognised in horses, is this pain face. The features of the face when the horse is in pain, so the lowered ears and the distance between the ears at the base increases, the contraction of the muscles above the eye, you get a tension within the facial muscles around the jaw area, you get a tense stare, dilated nostrils, this pointiness or tenseness around the mouth. Now if you're getting these signs from a horse, you need to work out what's causing the pain. This is not something you're going to train through. You need to find out what's causing that pain. Clicker training works on both classical and operant conditioning. So the operant conditioning is a trial and error. The classical conditioning is the automatic response. So they learn that the click means a treat, and they become classically conditioned to it. So as soon as that click happens, it releases the dopamine in the brain. They get excited at that point, not at the delivery of the reinforcer. But we also want to use this trial and error. We want them to think through the training. We don't want them just to be automatically doing responses. So this is where that operant conditioning, that trial and error learning comes in as well. Now the click is a handy tool. It's a marker that marks a specific behaviour that you would like. And that's quite handy if you're working at distance, or if there's a very particular thing that you want. So for example, you want your dog to put his paw on a specific spot, or you want your horse to shift their weight in a certain way or move their head carriage in a very specific way. The clicker is ideal, a marker is ideal for pinpointing that movement, and then you can deliver your reinforcer. We don't have to use food. Food is the easiest because the dog doesn't need to learn that it's good. They know it's good, they're pre-programmed to try and seek food, so it's a very easy reinforcer to use. But you don't have to use that. You can use play, so give them a fetch toy or a tug toy when they do the right thing, or you can use praise as well. And often once we're phrasing out the click and the treat, then praise is what comes as your main reinforcer. Other options for alternatives to food are scratches for both species, any species. Finding their scratchy spot and giving them a good scratch there can be a really good reinforcer, especially if you've got a horse that is quite pushy around food, or that has had starvation or something in the past that means food is a bit overwhelming for them. Scratches work really well. The other option is a play, cueing their favourite play behaviour. So my horses really enjoy fetch, they also enjoy targeting. Sometimes I use these two behaviours as reinforcers as well, rather than the food. Now remember, the click is just marking the behaviour you want. So once you've clicked the exact behaviour you want, then you've got about 10 seconds to give the dog his reward, which is really great because if you're rewarding a dog for behaviour at distance, you can click that and then you've got plenty of time to get back to them to give them their treat. But as we saw in the previous slide, even the click itself becomes reinforcing. So it doesn't always have to be followed by a treat or a toy or a praise. Step 1 is something called loading the clicker. Now you can do this in different ways. You can just keep clicking and treating until the animal realises that the click means treat. What I like to do is teach keep to your own space as part of this loading the clicker. So the first video here is going to be with the lovely Tara, who's a 13-year-old golden retriever. She'd not done any clicker training before. And my objective was for her to recognise that click means treat, but also to not be in my space too much. So I rewarded her when she was a little bit backed off, not had a head on my lap, not had a paw on my lap, but she was just sitting in her own space, respecting my space, and I was respecting hers, and I was reinforcing that. So I was teaching two things at the same time. The second video is of my little pony Bonnie, and the way I teach this with horses is I ask them to keep their head straight, so they're not pushing in, they're not nudging, and then she gets the food reinforcer. Whichever animal you're training, getting them used to the clicker and at the same time getting them used to not mugging is a really handy way to go. Have a look at these. Okay, are you ready? Good time. Hi. Beautiful girl. Okay. You sit. You sit. Hello. Good girl. That's very good. Good night. He's lovely. Best game ever. So I'm waiting until she looks away, and I kind of want to get to the point where she looks at me when the click comes. He's very attentive, isn't he? So at the moment I click and there's no response. She's just waiting for a treat. Do you see how she looked at me when she saw the click then? Okay, so we are getting that click means treat now. Let me go. Let's see if we can do that one more time. See, she looks to the left again. She seems to have decided that's her reason. There. So she looked at me as soon as I clicked. So we know that click means treat. There's a clever girl. There's a clever girl. And what will happen, probably by the next session, is that the click itself will release the dopamine. She doesn't have to get the food to release the dopamine, just the click will. So then it becomes what's called a secondary reinforcer. So I don't need to feed every time because the click itself is reinforcing. So another handy thing to remember is to have a start cue. So my start cue for Tara, you just saw us have my hands on my lap and say, are you ready? And for Bonnie, it's my hands in front of me and I stand at her shoulder and wait, and she knows that that means we're about to do something. So she has learnt to keep her head away when she's allowed a treat, and then also when I go to feed the treat, I wait for her head away as well. So she gets to click her head away, but then I also then wait head away and treat it even without the click. And all I want her to do is stand there. I've got to be careful that I don't keep waiting for her to look back at me. So my timing's got to be spot on. Otherwise, she'll just be bringing her head backwards and forwards. So head away, click, treat, and I could go click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, loads while her head's away so she doesn't start moving it back again. There are three main ways that you can create the behaviour, get the behaviour that you want. Let's have a look at these. First one is luring, and this is nice and easy. So you basically hold the food in a place where the dog will need to do what you want in order to get it. So in this example, the dog has to jump up to get the food. You might then put the voice cue of jump as they're jumping. They get the treat and they're going to do that behaviour again. And then you can eventually get rid of the food, hold your hand in the air and say jump. And then eventually you won't need to have your hand, you just put the word in, jump. And as long as you reinforce that, the dog will know that behaviour well. luring is also a super easy way of teaching sit. So here you hold the treat above the dog's head, quite close to them, otherwise they'll jump. And they look up at it, and as they look up, they sit down. And the second they sit down, you say the word sit and give them the treat, or sit and click and give them the treat. And then you can again do the same thing. So just hand over the head without the treat, sit, and then eventually just no hand and just sit on its own. Capture is your next way. So this is where the animal does the behaviour naturally, just in passing, and you click that moment. So it's quite an easy one with getting the paw. If you're training this with your dog, you put your hand out, they will usually put their paw in your hand. You can then click that and give them a treat. So the behaviour is just generally happens. I've taught my ponies to stop and wait for me. We go out on Liberty quite a lot on walks, and if they go a bit too far ahead, I'll call their name, they'll stop and they'll wait until we catch up. But the way I trained that was they would automatically stop and wait for the rest of the herd, and I'd click that automatic stop through capture. You can also train bark or stop barking with capture. The easiest way to stop a dog barking is to train bark and then never cue it. It's a good way of doing it. So capture is a really powerful tool as well. And the final option is something called shaping. Now this is really great when you need to build a more complex behaviour. So you say you want your dog to walk to heel, or you want them to do something else. So the easiest way to explain shaping is it's like a ladder, and each step is a step closer to the behaviour. So for example here we've got the little dog standing next to the person, and the person would like to train the behaviour of stay while there's distance between us. So first of all you do stay and you step away a small step, click and treat that. Then you go a bit further, click and treat that, then a bit further, click and treat that, until you get to the top of the ladder where you can be quite a distance away and the dog will still stay where you want it to. Now we've got a lovely little video of doing this with two gorgeous little dogs. And they are Harrison and Benson. And I was first asked to come and work with these little guys because they were very reactive to anyone or anything going past the window. And they lived on quite a busy road. There's a lot of barking, a lot of craziness. So we started clicker training to help regulate their emotions a bit, help them calm down. And this is where we first started to look at stay. Now they had learnt this with me helping their lovely owner Christine to teach it, but this is the first time they've done it with me. And when you change trainers, there's a lot of confusion. So it's a really good example of how we use shaping to get them to understand that I want you to stay there and not come with me. Take a look. Okay. Whoa. Is it? Stay. Stay. Oh, it's tricky, isn't it? Okay. Good. Now this is a really good example of antecedents in shaping. You're setting them up for success whilst building this ladder towards the behaviour you want. Now, Harry is sitting beautifully. He's quite happy to stay there forever, but Benson really wants to come with me when I start to walk behind him. Now this is the opposite than with horses. If I want a horse to stay put, if I walk behind them, they're more likely to stay. If I walk ahead of them, they're more likely to follow. Stand. Click. Click. Treat.
Good girl.
Good, and another handful as well.
You're a good girl.
Beautiful. Give her a bit of love for a minute. Just sort the rope out. That's it. Okay, and stand all the way around the other way. Okay, so stand. Where you go. Click. Yeah, baby, she said I did it. Big treat and a big love. Benson is the opposite. So I wanted to make it easier. He was getting up and walking to turn and look at me as I was walking behind him. So I changed what I was doing. I changed the antecedents so that he made it easier for him to understand and he could watch me all the time. I also decreased the number of steps, so I went down the shaping ladder a bit so that I was making it easier for him to understand the behaviour. Have a look at what happened. Good. Stay. Good. Lift the fluffy bum. Stay. Good. Whoa, nearly. Stay. Good, well done. Stay. Here's a nice example of shaping with my pony Pixie. So my objective at the top of my ladder was for her to stand in front of a carriage while I put the shafts down, put a harness on. I wanted her to come and line herself up when she was ready and wanted to do it as well. So we had a bit of consent in there too, and cooperation. This is at the point where she's just learned to come and line herself up and we're just getting used to the shafts coming up and down. So we're about halfway up the shaping ladder at the moment.
Alright, we'll see how we go with the second trick. Good. Nice. You might need to straighten it a little more. Good. Now Bonnie joining us now, so she might disappear from view. That's lovely. Alright, we'll try a couple more times, maybe one more time. Stand. Good. A bit of noise. Good. Yeah. Very nice. This is about where she's comfy at the moment. Just here. Good. Good girl. That's so nice. Really brilliant. Really good.
Once you've got the behaviours you want, so you've got a few different behaviours, one way that you can phase out the click and the treat quite easily is by chaining behaviours together. So putting a few different behaviours all stuck together so that you don't need to click each individual one, you just cue each one at a time and then click at the end. There are other ways of phasing out the click as well, but this is just one of them. He's always sitting, that's it. Good.
Down.
And then you click. That's it. Nice. And then give him lots of love.
Oh, my boy. He's a good boy. Come here. Did I let you in?
Now, a very important thing to consider when you're using positive reinforcement is ending your session, because you'll find that your dog really wants to be doing training, or your horse or your giraffe or whoever you're training. So ending this session has to be done with this in mind, so it doesn't become a punisher. It doesn't become you taking away something nice. Now, the way you can do that is give them a big jackpot or magnitude feed. So this is kind of a handful of treats, or in case of a horse, a massive pile of chaff on the floor, a bigger treat 10 times the size of the ones that you've been using in the training. And then you give them the thing that they find most rewarding. So for Harry, that was love and strokes, and for Benson, that was his ball. So whether you have a behaviour that you want to train, a behaviour you want to stop, or an emotion that you want to address in your dog, clicker training is an excellent way forward.